Hi, welcome back to the breadboard. What we're looking at here is the build area of my Tronxy X5S 3D printer, and in particular what I'm going to draw your attention to is this thing. Right now the printer is turned off, and all I'm going to do is turn it on, and what you can hear now, I'm not doing any printing, I'm not heating anything, I'm just turned it on. And I'm actually about 6 inches, 8 inches away from the fan. That fan is the head heater cooling fan, and basically it is as noisy as hell. I know it's wanting to blast a lot of cooling air across the head so that it doesn't let the heat from the hot end get up to the top of the extruding area and the heating area so you don't affect the filament and keep things flowing nicely, but it's way too loud. So what can we do about it? This is the stock one that comes with it. It's probably not that expensive. I mean, this whole printer is about $350, so there is not a huge expense put into things like fans. Yes, they've got to be effective and they have to, work, but they don't have to necessarily be built to be deadly quiet and things like that. So what I've done is I've gone out and bought a Noctua NF-A4X10 FLX 40mm by 10mm premium fan. That's the size of the one that's actually in here, and this one is supposed to be ultra low noise. So I'm going to change it out. We'll have a look at this fan as well in a moment before I put it in, but I'm going to change it out and then we're going to see whether this improves the noise, because the noise is so bad that my wife gets very irritated by it, and she's in the other end of the house sometimes and she can still hear it because it's quite penetrating because of the pitch. So I can put up with it to a certain extent, but it is noisy. Just very briefly, what we have in the kit is the fan itself. As I said, it's all plastic, 40mm sides, 10 millimeters deep. Has a nice long cable on it. Let's just start taking things out of the box. So that's the fan itself. We have a number of cables. We have a long 3-pin extender. We have some mounting screws if they're needed. And these ones we won't be using because where it's going they won't fit. We have a number of other cables here. So this one is what they call a low noise adapter. Now I think all this really does, feeling inside this sleeving, is it's got a resistor, so it drops the voltage a little bit so the fan runs just a little bit slower so that it's even quieter. And in some applications that might just be fine. We have a small piece of cable with a socket on it. The idea being, for instance, in our case where we're going to take this fan off, we're going to need to cut the wires and put a little socket on so that we can plug it into this fan, rather than trying to mess around with soldering irons and things. We have a 2-pin to 3-pin adapter. So in our case we've got the 2 wires which we're going to connect to this, so we're probably not going to need this thing, but if you're putting it into a board where you've just got little 2-pin sockets on it, well then that would be useful for that. And lastly, there are 4 little crimp type connections. They call them Omni joint adapters. What they basically are is you just push the wires into the end and squish it down with a pair of pliers or something, and it connects the 2 pieces of wire together. So again, the only tools you need is a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. Anyway, I will now take the fan apart, the existing one over here, so that we can get it fitted. So be right back. So here's what it all looks like taken apart. I've put the part cooling fan up on the side here for now, and the fan we're changing is this one in here. I can see we're going to have to end up cutting this lead so that we can put the connection on, and because somewhere down inside here is where the actual joint is going to be. And we're going to take the fan out, 4 screws at the front, and we're going to mount in this one if I can, I'm going to see if I can use the rubber mounting pieces. Actually, the fan actually comes with a number of little rubber mounting parts that you can pull through the case and then mount the fan. So we'll see if we can actually use those, because that will prevent any vibrations going all the way through too. If not, we'll just use the nuts and or the screws that they originally used, but we'll see. Anyway, back in a moment. Okay, so I have not finished putting everything together yet. The part cooling shroud and things haven't been put back on, but the fan is mounted. I did manage to get to use the rubber mounts. Now when you put that in, just be careful, because there is a little bit of the end of these little rubber mounts that sticks forward, so you need to make sure that they're clear of the hot end. The lower end is not an issue. It looks like it's quite clear. The top end is getting close to this, but if everything's working, this top end should be pretty cool anyway. I've put the connector on. Be aware with these little crimped things. Let me just move that up so you can see what I'm talking about. These are the little crimp things. They do have silicone grease inside to provide a nice tight seal, so some of it might goop out when you clamp it and get things a little bit sticky, but that's fine. Just be aware of it when you're doing it. Maybe have a rag to clean things up. So, time to turn it back on again. Now I'll do the same thing as I did before, and that is I'll put the microphone up to about 6 inches away from it. I do not have dynamic audio level set on, so we should see quite a notable difference. So let's give this a go. Okay, that's it on. And I can already see on the gauge of the camera that it's much quieter. And now let me move it closer. So about 6 inches away. Turned it on, and I'm actually about 6 inches, 8 inches away from the fan. That fan is the head. Oh, I would say that's a success. That is much quieter, and it feels like we're getting about the same amount of airflow. I certainly feel just the same kind of breeze. This fan also takes less power, according to what's written on the fan case here. This one is 12 volts with 0.12 amps. The other one is 12 volts with 0.05 amps, so it's just a little under half the amount of current. But I think because of the bearing structure and everything else in these Noctua fans, you can get just as much airflow much more efficiently and much quieter. And you also notice when I showed you the center of the fan on the Noctua is smaller. There's more blades, less motor. So you get more airflow because of that as well. Plus with the design and everything else, I'll point you to a link to the website where you can have a look at all the features. But I think you can see right there that that has brought the noise level down quite considerably. So I'm just going to put the wire wrap back on and put the part cooling fan back on and everything, and get to printing some more stuff with it. That's it for this one. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, well, don't. But see you in the next video. Bye.